My name is Faraz Ali. I'm in the second year of my medical school and I run two businesses, Life Changing Tuition and Life Changing Oxbridge, combined to doing $100,000 per month. In this video, I want to share my come up story, how I was basically forced to take over a business because my dad nearly lost his life, and then how I managed to scale that to 100K while still in med school. So my first experience actually making money was when I was around 11 or 12 years old, and I was just doing graphic design and video editing for friends that I had online that I'd play games with. I was doing it mostly for fun and I just enjoyed developing the skill further, but I did manage to make a few £100 from that. Although being that age I had no idea what to spend it on, and I literally just used it on in-game skins. When I was 15, that's when I started looking into things a bit deeper. I was watching this YouTuber called Be a Hezza, and he was doing this challenge from going from 0 to 10K per month, and it was showing exactly what he was doing step by step. So I decided, why not just completely follow what he's doing and see if I can actually manage to make some money off of this. His whole thing was drop shipping, but to start from zero, what he did was reach out to Instagram theme pages and he'd pay them to promote some form of t-shirt which he'd sell using a print on demand service. I had around 15 bucks to my name, which I used to go and find a theme page, ask them to do a promotion, and I managed to make $43 in profit from that. I remember waking up the morning after to having $43 in my bank without having done anything throughout the night. That was probably the richest I've ever felt. Following him, he moved on to drop shipping after that, reinvesting his profits. So I tried doing that. I found some gimmicky sort of soap pump that I decided to try and sell. I'd obviously never tried Facebook ads at 15, so I tried to follow what he was doing, but I ended up blowing everything I'd made. There was a bit of a gap between then and my next venture when I was around 16 or 17. Started falling down the online business rabbit hole, and this was when SMMA was really blowing up through Iman Gadzi. I ended up finding one of these smaller gurus in the space, offered him to do video editing in exchange for him to actually mentor me, which went on for probably about a few months, and I managed to follow his playbook again. We got quite a few sales calls in. I was obviously again 15, super nervous. I didn't manage to sell anyone, but I did get a good bit of experience through this. After a few months, he stopped posting. He kind of ghosted me, and I had no idea what to do with this sort of system I'd built out where I was doing outreach and getting sales calls booked, but I couldn't actually convert any of these guys. And again, I had to end up taking a bit of a break from online business because my A-levels started coming around. I had to focus on that, and for the next year or so I had to pretty much leave it. But I kept seeing Iman Gadzi's videos, and it just continued to build this desire that I really did not want to go down that path of a 9 to 5. But there were some personal moments that actually made this even deeper of a desire. For example, when I had to go to the vets and we had to spend around £500 to £1,000 just to get some treatment for our guinea pig, and that felt like a massive stretch. I knew there were people out there who were making that amount of money like every hour, and something like that just wouldn't have affected them, and that was really the biggest driver for me. I really wanted to make sure that I wouldn't feel stressed out with these sort of emergency situations where I didn't have enough money, and that's also what's still driving me to this day. And I want a level of income that is going to ensure I'll never have to feel that way ever again. For me, it was never really about having flashy items, watches or cars, even though I would go through airports when I was 17 or 18 looking at all of the expensive shit and thinking about how people could literally buy this without having it actually hurt their wallet at all. But that never really drove me that much. What the real driver was is having actual freedom to move around where I wanted to not be locked down to a single job or having to be somewhere at a certain time, and then again not having to stress about these financial things that can come up and really ruin your entire week or month. So at this point, I've still not made any progress. I've been trying to do different things from maybe age 11 or 12, and I haven't managed to actually have anything that's hit. Although it's been on and off, it still feels like I've been in this game for a long time. I'm seeing people younger than me, 16, 17, doing these SMMA courses, one of them being Cameron England, if you've ever known of him, making tons of fuck you money. They're making 10, 20K, and they're years younger than me. So after putting my head down, actually getting through these A-levels, getting some really good grades and securing a med school offer, I knew that I still couldn't go down this path. The goal was realistically to actually hit 20K a month before the second year of medical school. So a few weeks before the event that changed my entire life trajectory, I got into medical school. I received top 0.1% grades in the UK. I got my medical school offer, which had a gap year included in it, but I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, and I had this gap year to try and figure something out. I needed to find a way to make money online that would actually work. And during this period, I was moving a bit away from this SMMA content. I was watching a lot of Hamza, who had recently, I believe, started making around 100 or 200k a month, literally just selling online courses on YouTube. And that was the plan. That's what I thought. I had this entire year ahead of me. I can really go deep into this and figure something out. But 2 weeks into that gap year, something happened that pretty much changed the entire trajectory of this. My dad, who was running a £120,000 a year tutoring business, had a stroke. Around this time, he was preparing to run a summer school tuition camp, which he does every single year with his tutoring company. And this program alone would bring in pretty much 40% of our family's income. And we were pretty much about to lose all of it if no one stepped in and actually ran that program for him. So at 18, I didn't really know anything about tutoring, but I had been in online business. I'd tried SMMA and everything that I've talked you through in the past. So I had some expertise that I could actually implement into this. Over the next few weeks, we started preparing everything for this program. It was extremely messy. There was tons of trial and error. We were working 12-hour days. We got our family and friends involved. We had to create exam-style questions. We had to create booklets, exam papers, collate everything from years of books and materials that were lying around our garage. We had issues with deadlines, logistics, printing nightmares. There were rarely any breaks. My dad would get extremely frustrated if anyone took a break because we were so behind schedule. And I didn't want to be doing any of it either. I had this whole plan for this gap year and it had completely gone sideways. By the end of it, it was a decent success. The summer program managed to make 30k in profit, but it wasn't finished there. My dad was still pretty much unable to walk and run this whole thing himself, and I knew I had to systematize this entire business, make sure that it could run without him and without me, because I was going to go to medical school next year. So over the next year, I implemented everything I'd learned so far and continue to learn from, for example, Alex Hormozi and other people online to systematize and try and scale this as far as I could. We hired a completely new team, we got managers involved, and we made sure that everything was outsourced. We started utilizing employees from the Philippines to keep costs down, and I managed to take my dad out of the business so it would run on its own. We managed to scale it to 180k a year from where it was at before at 120, and obviously by this point it was running on its own and the profit margins were a lot better. So overall it was a decent success, but despite that growth, I still thought by that point that tutoring had a hard ceiling and I didn't really want to continue in it. I didn't enjoy it at all. And by this point, a creator called Dan Coe started blowing up on YouTube, who was making $4 million a year from literally just writing posts on Twitter, and he'd sell courses, whatnot, to make that money. I went on Twitter, started following this community, and it became a huge trend. And by that point, I thought maybe this is the next thing to go into, and you'll see this is sort of another distraction for me. I ended up spending $500 on one of these mentors to try and help me grow on Twitter and do the same thing. That pretty much fell through the floor within a few months. After that, I found one other guru online. These guys are actually now extremely successful to this day. Jordan Lee and Jacob Levine. I paid them $7k for another agency program. And by this point, that was all of the savings that I had to make sure that I made this work. So I decided I'd do whatever it takes. It looked extremely reputable. They had tons of case studies, but they were putting me into one of their new programs, which was a low ticket program. I followed everything that they said. I was one of the top members in the community. I won some one-on-ones with the actual founder, but regardless, 8 months of trying that and I still made nothing. And by this point, I was actually moving into medical school. I was still at zero. Even though some of these deals were very close to maybe going through, I didn't manage to close anything. At this point, I started coming across some ads of other online tutoring businesses. I tried ads in the past during that gap year, but I couldn't get it to work. I'd paid agencies and pretty much all of that was burnt money. But this time I found someone who seemed to have been doing it successfully. I went through their funnel, asked them if they'd be able to help us, and their agency, who was managing their ads, actually reached out to me, ended up signing me up. I was paying around £500 a month at this point, and I decided I'd launch an online tutoring business that I can actually do remotely. So in 90 days, we actually scaled pretty quickly. These guys knew what they were doing to an extent. We went from 0 to 4K a month recurring, but barely any of that was actually profit. I was dumping 3K of that back into ads to actually get some more new clients for the next month. I was spending another 1K on a call center that would call up my leads within 60 seconds. And I was running all of this alongside doing my first year of med school. So I was working extremely long hours and it was miserable. The recurring revenue did manage to continue to compound. Around January or February of 2025, we managed to hit our first 10K a month, but I was still not really confident in that model. Although things would compound, everyone was bound to churn when they actually took their exams, and I'd have to start from all over again. I'd have to end up reinvesting every single penny that I got back into ads to scale to that same level. It'd probably take years for me to build a proper referral engine where I'd be getting customers automatically. So around April of that year, I invested in another mentor who said that they could help us scale further, scale past 20 or 30K per month. He advised us to switch to a VSL funnel and a high ticket program. And from there, we did manage to quickly scale to 20K per month within around 10 weeks. However, we plateaued there for the next few months. So we're consistently doing 20K per month. We're selling higher tickets, and we continued paying this mentor a retainer for the next 5 months, hoping that we'd be able to unlock this bottleneck. But it seemed like they didn't really have any other expertise aside from what they implemented for us in that initial phase. So we decided to part ways with that mentor, and we felt like the next step that we should take was try and move up market. So we've been doing tutoring for the 11 plus exam, which is tutoring for extremely young kids. Parents aren't extremely willing to pay high tickets for that. We decided to move up market towards Oxford and Cambridge tutoring. I partnered up with a co-founder that had just graduated from Cambridge, and we spent 6 weeks building out an entire offer stack and a funnel. And 3 weeks before my second year of med school, we launched this new program. My partner had never been in online business before. He was meant to be taking sales calls, but I had to take the first few weeks of them to get him up to scratch and train him. But the first ever call that we took on this new offer, I managed to sell a tutoring package for 6K, which we've never done before. And literally the second call after that, the day after, we sold another 6K program. And soon after that, we started selling 15K packages. Just so I can understand where you guys are at, do you feel like that would be worth the 15,000?
Yeah, of course.
So very quickly, we realized that this move up market was definitely the right play. We continued to scale the ads, and by January of 2026, we hit our first 58K month. Right now, we're consistently doing those numbers, and I'm making more in a single month than the career that I'm actually studying for. My dad's stroke is what got me into this, and it was at the worst possible timing. But obviously, looking back at it now, if that hadn't happened, I would not be where I was today with these two tutoring businesses. And obviously, over the last 18 months, we've learned a ton about how to run and scale a tutoring business, and that's what we've started this channel for. My goal is to share exactly what I've learned to tutoring business owners who are in the exact same position that I was in. I want to get you past 10, 20, or even 50K months by showing you exactly what's working in my business right now. So if you're down for that sort of thing, then stick around and I'll see you in the next one.